Hi, my name is Peter Johnson. I teach a middle school class called Innovative Arts, and the program I have for you is called Brainy Connections. Your brain is absolutely amazing. It controls everything that your body does. Right now, my brain is telling my mouth to move, my tongue to move. It's having my lungs expel air through my vocal cords, which is making a sound. It's moving my arms as I move around as I talk to you. My brain is doing a lot while I talk to you, and yours is doing a lot too. Right now, you're looking at the screen, so light is going into your eyes. It's hitting some receptors, photoreceptors in the back of your eye. Then your optic nerve is sending that to your brain, and your brain is making sense of it. So how does a brain work? Well, what your brain is made of are little tiny cells called neurons. In each brain, there are 100 billion neurons. That's so many neurons. Now, one neuron by itself can't do anything. You can't walk, you can't talk because you have one neuron. It's because you have so many neurons, and between each neuron are connections. Those connections are what you know. If you have a connection between clouds and water, then that connection is how you remember that clouds are made out of water, for example. If you've ever heard a teacher explain something new and you thought, oh wow, I already get this, this is easy to learn, it's because your brain already had connections in those areas, and it was easy for you to learn because those connections were already there, and you just need to make them a little stronger. You see, the connections that are in our brains get stronger as we use them. Those are the things that you remember right away. Those are really strong connections. If you don't use the connections in your brain, if you learn something new and you never think about it again, then your brain actually gets rid of that connection. It says, that must not have been important, I don't need to keep that anymore. So your brain will get rid of connections that you're not using. Do you remember what you had for breakfast at the beginning of the school year 2 years ago? Probably not, because your brain said, okay, I don't need to keep this anymore, let's get rid of it. That's why your teachers have been telling you to study a little bit every night. If you study a little bit tonight and a little bit tomorrow night, then you're using those connections again and again and again and making them stronger instead of trying to study all at once the day before a quiz or a test or something. It's better to study little 5-minute chunks, just to review it, just to look at your notes or whatever, and then you'll remember it much better than if you're trying to stay up late the night before and cram it all in your brain. It just doesn't work. You can't build connections quickly. You have to do it over time, over days, and practicing over days. Also know that sleep is how your brain helps make new connections. All day your brain is filling up with your short-term memory, and you're learning new things, and your short-term memory is pretty good at keeping, okay, what were you doing 2 hours ago? That's okay. Well, when you go to sleep tonight, your brain is going to start erasing all that short-term memory and trying to figure out, okay, which of these things are important that I should put in my long-term memory. Your long-term memory, those are the things that you remember forever and always. How to ride a bike. What's 2 plus 2? You know those things because they're stuck in your long-term memory and they're not going anywhere. You want the things that you're learning to go into your long-term memory. If you're not getting enough sleep, your brain isn't getting a chance to clear out that short-term memory, make room for the things you're going to learn the next day, and you're not giving it a chance to make those long-term memory connections that it needs for you to learn new things. That's why your teachers and your parents say, you need to get some sleep, you need to get some sleep, because your brains are growing and you're making those new connections every night while you sleep, and not getting enough sleep is a great way to not learn anything. Do you know how you learn the best? It's by making mistakes. If you're making mistakes, something special is happening inside of your brain, and you're learning what not to do, what you should do differently, how did that go wrong, and your brain will remember that, and you'll do it better the next time. So if you're making a mistake at something, that means you're learning. That means you're on the process of doing it right. If you want to be really good at something, then you need to be making more mistakes at that thing. Because as you make those mistakes, you should be trying to figure out what went wrong, what can I do better, and now I'm going to try it again. And eventually you'll stop making that mistake. You'll start figuring out what mistakes you will be making next, and you'll be making better mistakes and more advanced mistakes, and you're going to get to a point where you're making mistakes that you couldn't have dreamed to be making when you first started out. If you're trying to learn something, making mistakes is just a part of learning that thing. You're not going to be perfect at anything when you first start it. You just need to embrace the mistakes as they come and realize that that's a part of your brain growing. In my class, I teach my students how to use Tinkercad, how to 3D model, and the first day they try it, it's always frustrating, it's always difficult, they're always making mistakes. I'm helping them push through, and by the third day, we can think back at that first day and say, wow, we've learned a lot. We've made a lot of connections in our brain. We've come so far from where I was the first time I started doing this. You have to just know the first time will be difficult, the second time will be a little easier, by the third time you might be halfway to being a pro at it. But if you're afraid of mistakes the first time, you'll never get there. Website and find all of my videos on how to learn how to use Tinkercad. Try the first video the first day. It'll be kind of difficult the first day. The second day, rewatch it. The second day, watch the second video. You'll start to see that what was hard becomes easy, and then the second day, what's hard, well, that'll be easy on the third day, and you'll start growing in your brain. You'll start seeing mistakes. The first day were fine. That was just part of the process. I needed to make those mistakes to get to where I am now. But do you really want to know the secret to helping your brain have lots of connections and learning more and being able to learn faster? The real secret is to read every day. If you're reading every day, what you're doing is you're putting ideas in your head and you're making connections all the time, and what you'll have is a thick cobweb of connections already in your brain. When you're walking into that science class next year, you'll have so many more connections that you can use to connect the thing you're learning in that class. It'll look easy for you if you have lots of connections compared to a kid who doesn't have so many connections. Would you rather have 1 billion connections in that area or 1,000? Obviously, if you have 1 billion connections in this one spot of your brain, you can learn that thing more easily. By reading, you can make all those new connections before you even need them, and then it's easier to remember things, it's easier to learn new things, it just gets easier as you read more. In fact, our brains are pretty amazing. The more you learn, the more you can learn. It's not like we're a computer where our hard drives can get full. We are limitless, where our brains can make a lot of connections, and all those connections mean we can make even more connections. So the people who know the most can learn the most at the same time. So just to review what we've talked about so far, mistakes are a great way to learn. You need to repeat the things that you want to remember. Get some sleep so that your brain can remember those things, and just read a little bit every day to help keep your brain making new connections. The more connections you have, the easier it is for you to learn in the future. As a community, we are going to be making models of brains. They can look however you want. Here's the one I keep in my classroom all the time. This model has all these pipe cleaners, and each pipe cleaner represents a mistake that one of my students made sometime in the past. We've only had this for a little while, but there's been a lot of mistakes. Every time they make a mistake and they tell me about it, we add a new connection, because that's something that someone now knows that they didn't know before. Let's take a look at some of the other models we can be making. Once you're finished making your model, make sure there's a little word next to it like there was in those examples, and send it in. What we're going to do is we're going to take all of the submissions from all the different people who send in pictures and send back a video of all the different brains with all the different connections that people have been making. It's going to be awesome. Make sure you say thank you to the librarian who set this up and is organizing this, as well as make sure you get that picture sent in. I can't wait to see all the different models and all the different creative ways that we can show the connections in our brains. So keep reading, keep sleeping, and keep repeating the things that you want to do. Have a great summer, and I hope to see your pictures soon.